Hello. Well, the civil service has discovered a great new way of getting rid of bosses they don't like. All they have to do is say they're being bullied. Let's start with Dominic Raab. If you remember, he lost his job and now will not stand in the next elections because he's probably fed up of those guys and the fact, no doubt, that Rishi Sunak isn't backing him up. He was accused of bullying, and what was the nature of his bullying? Well, it was this. He expected civil servants to turn up on time for meetings, to have their homework ready, and to know the answers to questions he was putting to them. And if he didn't get that sort of response, then he might occasionally bang his fist on the table, or even worse, he'd give them a hard stare. Yeah, like Paddington Bear. So that was how the civil service got rid of Dominic Raab. Now they're going after Baroness Faulkner. And the interesting thing is, it's always the right of the Conservative Party that they seem to be most upset by. And this one started with the Equalities Watchdog. Well, it's the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, which was headed by Baroness Faulkner of Margravine. I hope I'm saying her name properly. And she said that this was in January, that over the last 5 years, the debate over sex versus gender has become more polarised, which is absolutely right. Her comments came after the human rights body wrote to the Scottish Government asking it to pause plans to make it legally easier for people to change gender. Now, I have said this before. This whole business about sex and gender, it's, in my opinion, got not so much to do with real sex and gender, but with people being forced to say things which just ain't so, because that's softening them up for other acceptance of just ain't so stuff. And so this has become something of a dig in your heels position for different sides of the question. But in general, we can say that people in the Conservative Party are more for saying that sex is fixed, and the left-wing parties are more for saying, oh no, it's quite possible, as Ed Davey, the head of the Liberal Democrat Party, said only within the last few days, that of course it's obvious a woman can have a parasol. Right, so that's what Baroness Faulkner said in January. Then in April, she was talking again about this very subject, and she said that the activists will not sway the rules on her findings about keeping women-only spaces as women-only spaces. In her first comments to a newspaper since publishing guidance stating that trans women can lawfully be excluded from female-only spaces, Baroness Faulkner said that her organisation had a duty to uphold the law independent of campaign groups or vested interests. Right, so that was in April. Well, we can't have this, can we? So after that, it turns out she was a bully. Isn't that shocking? And the civil service made complaints about it and leaked stuff to Channel 4, that famous left-wing channel, and a programme was made headed by none other than Cathy Newman. Now, I can't find it here. But she was the one who was heading the Channel 4 show. And if the name Cathy Newman rings a bell, you might remember that she is the one who conducted an interview of Jordan Peterson and kept repeating the now famous phrase, So what you're saying is, and this is what she was doing with Baroness Faulkner as well, even though she wasn't interviewing her. Baroness Faulkner of Margravine, the chairman of the Equality and Human Rights Commission, is at the centre of a vicious internal row after her own officials filed a dossier of complaints about her alleging bullying, discrimination and harassment. It's plunged the watchdog, which is tasked with upholding equality law in Britain, into crisis and opened a schism between its expert commission and the civil servants who implement their decisions. In other words, if the civil servants don't like somebody or don't like what they're doing, or what this person does goes against their own, I was going to say principles, but it's more ideals, isn't it? Then they just accuse him or her of bullying, and Bob's your uncle. They're out. The sinner is out on his or her ear. Now, insiders have turned their fire on Channel 4 News after it broadcast an alleged polemic about the chairman on Tuesday night, which they say took a guilty before proven innocent approach. Yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me from Channel 4, of course. And that was on, let's see, when was that? That was May the 24th. And this is also May the 24th. And she is using her own money to take them all to court to defend herself against these accusations that she's a terrible Cruella de Vil. So it says here, she was not aware of any formal employment complaints having been brought against me during my tenure as chairwoman. You see, so nobody was saying anything about her then, only now that she's come out in favour of women-only spaces. She also said she's yet to be interviewed and that no findings have been made. So you can see the way they're getting at her, they're just dragging stuff up, aren't they? Among the staff complaints are a lack of psychological safety. Oh, this whole thing about safety. It means nothing. i.e. the fear, oh really, the fear of who will be attacked next, and that staff are worried that the commission is becoming an unsafe place to work. These are all buzzwords, aren't they? They're all cut and paste descriptions. Look, it's not an unsafe place to work if you're working in the civil service in London. Now, you go to Yemen under Saudi bombing, that's probably not very safe. You're a Russian banker, that's probably not very safe. Stay away from windows, or tea indeed. Walking through certain parts of Chicago, wearing a big gold watch and a chain, a diamond chain, that's probably not safe either. Going into work in London, into a civil service office, is not an unsafe place. Absolutely not. All right. Yeah, it says here, another insider said the saga overlaps with separate recent cases of kid glove Whitehall officials making grievances about cabinet ministers. Yeah, you just don't like the minister, you accuse them of bullying, and then after a while the ministers become very quiet and compliant because they're frightened for their jobs. It's just part of a programme. She might, Baroness Faulkner might get over this, but the next one might be a lot more careful because he or she might not want the aggro. And that's the whole point. Who is governing this country? Well, it looks like this group of entitled, unsafe civil servants are governing this country, and it's quite a frightening prospect, actually. All right, well, yeah, like this video, please, and look in the description for the other platforms I'm on, as well as Twitter and Gab, where I let you know when I've uploaded a new video. There's also links to sites where you can contribute financially if you want, but the best thing you can do, just click that like, and make sure if you think you're subscribed that you really are subscribed, and if you aren't subscribed, do it now. Okay, till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the granniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.granniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share, share, share.